Antidepressants are meant to get you over a period of time in your life, be it grief or whatever. But there comes this point now, I feel, that a lot of people are just addicted to them and are scared to come off them. You know, there are people that have been on them for 6 years, for something
longer sometimes,
where they're well over whatever it was, but they can't imagine life without them.
But to be fair, there are also some people who have disorders of some kind who will have to stay on it for longer.
That's a different thing.
But you know, it used to be just America, didn't it? We'd look at America, and it would be highlighted through the deaths of people like Elvis, Michael Jackson, and obviously more recently Prince. This sort of lifestyle of being on prescription drugs every single day, where nobody really knows what the original condition was. And it's like this sort of mass anaesthetising that people are doing. And I just think over here we need to be very careful, because there are doctors that you go to them and they say, well, what is this for, and let's have a look at the causes first. But there are other doctors, they've got 5 minutes with you, prescription,
antidepressants.
Well, do you not think a lot of that is because, I mean, there are some wonderful alternatives, but they take longer, they're more expensive. You're talking about, you know, counselling and cognitive behaviour therapy, that sort of thing.
It is. And I think, for me, the issue I have with it is, you know, I completely agree with you, Jane. I think certain times you do need prescription drugs, but I think my concern is way too often it's the first port of call as opposed to the last. And I think, like you say, there are other alternatives that should be explored first before somebody is prescribed drugs. Because once you're actually taking medication and your body becomes used to that, it's very hard to then come off
wean yourself off.
Just chemically.
And I think a lot of the time if you go to the doctor, they haven't got the time to talk to you or to try and find an alternative method of, you know, somewhere else to go. I know that my son and my husband both suffered from anxiety and a bit of depression and that, and the first thing they said when they went to the doctors is they need antidepressants. Both of them refused it because it's just sort of masking the fact. I'm not saying with everyone, obviously some people need to take antidepressants, but for them two, they decided against it and they've never taken it, and they've got over their anxiety and depression and that. But I was actually in hospital for 6 weeks once on morphine, right? And then after it was lovely. I had morphine every day, an injection in my bottom to make me sleep every night, and then they send you home with paracetamol. I was walking the floors every night, I couldn't get sleep, I was in a terrible state, having to wean myself off. It was like going cold turkey.
And that's the thing, if you can readily get that morphine or whatever...
I would have bought it.
Exactly, and I think people now can buy these things on the internet a lot more readily.
That's scary, because you don't know what you're buying.
You relate to what Cara Delevingne said, don't you, about I wanted to feel something.
Definitely, and when you read the article, and she said that she basically felt that she was numb and her emotions were numb because she'd been on antidepressants. Similar to her, I was put on it for a very real reason. I was suffering, but in my case, it was postnatal depression. Strangely enough, I decided to wean myself off it while I was getting divorced, which is normally the time when you think you'd be going on it. But I was going through a really difficult time. But actually, for me, it was about I wanted to take control back of my life and get control back of my feelings, because although I felt terrible, all the emotions you'd expect going through a divorce, I kind of wanted to get back to being me again. But luckily, I was mentally strong enough and physically strong enough to do it sensibly and gradually, by myself, just wean myself off it.
And that was your choice.
It was my choice,
that said you should come off. You
Not at all. And I think the worrying thing is, if you aren't in a strong enough mental state to think, you know, I think I can try and do this by myself, you can find yourself just constantly on repeat prescriptions and sort of sleepwalking your way into being addicted to prescription drugs.
I've seen it with my husband, because when our youngest daughter was born, he suddenly started... He used to sleep really well.
Is this because I talked about sleepwalking?
And he used to sleep really well. And then when our youngest daughter was born, I don't know, I guess the pattern of waking up and whatever got in, and he suddenly couldn't sleep. And so he went and got a prescription for sleeping tablets. 12 years later...
He's still on them.
He's still on them. And I see it, you know, we have this agreement. I go, right, you're not allowed to take these sleeping tablets downstairs, because he did once, and it was like timber, chemical kosh. I see, he just suddenly goes out.
So it takes 20 minutes, doesn't it?
But he cannot sleep without them. And, you know, it's that sort of thing where you sort of say, well, go 2 weeks without taking them, and it becomes a self-fulfilling
Is he mentally
addiction.
dependent on them as well as physically dependent, do you think?
Because if he didn't take it, in fact, last weekend we went away and he forgot to take his sleeping tablet. He was just pacing the floor all night.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably tired, but his brain's saying, you can't sleep without these tablets. And, you know, it just goes on and on.
We've got some information from the charity Mind here. And, you know, I think it's quite interesting that, you know, 3 of us on this panel has had some sort of experience with prescription drug addiction. So what they say here is for anybody who is on medication and would like to consider coming off it, the first thing to do, you must avoid stopping them suddenly. That you cannot
Absolutely,
do. Secondly is to discuss it with somebody you trust, ideally a doctor, a medical professional, and then of course seek help from a possible help group. So I think it's really important.
I think
to do
also
that.
maybe inform your family and friends, people who are close to you, and say, look, I've been on these tablets and I'm coming off it, so keep an eye on me.
And to do it as a gradual thing. Don't just
help
do
me through it
straight away and stop.
If you've enjoyed that, then why not click here for more? And don't forget to subscribe by clicking here so that you never miss out on the best Loose Women moments.